Alright everyone, so in the first part of the video, because I made this video into two parts, and I discussed about how the Hebrew Israelites scattered throughout the diaspora, the African diaspora, as it says right here, the African diaspora are the true Israelites, are being manipulated and controlled. We were taken into captivity, which was obviously much more physical. You could see the chains on you. You could see the full-scale oppression through the captivity when it was done through chattel slavery, as it's called. But we're still living on the plantation. As I talk about in my other videos, the modern day plantation. But you can't see these shackles. It's the same thing when it comes to the Israelites that are living in Africa, that are scattered throughout the continent of Africa. They are not under the vestiges of colonialism, but they're now under neo-colonialism. So this new form of oppression paints a picture of freedom, but the shackles now are in the mind. It's more so in heaven. So it requires us to awaken ourselves and come out of this mental form of oppression. And the only way we could really start doing this is if we start learning about our identity, our origin, where we come from, and about the prophecies, because that is our guide. It's like a lamp. It lights our way for us of in what direction we should be moving. And just to prove, because some people be like, oh, well, that's, that's, you shouldn't equate that as, it being in heaven. Let's look at this verse that even Christ mentioned. Here we see in Matthew 11:12, it says, "And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force." Really think about that. And I'm going to get a little bit more into this, dive deeper into this in another video. But just think about it. If heaven is, when we paint the picture of heaven, and we're not looking at the context of it, how is it that heaven can be taken by force? If it's spiritual, might and force should not be able to affect something that is in the spiritual realm. When you start using, what are you using? What tools are you using to take heaven? This is where education and indoctrination and conditioning and psychological manipulation and warfare and even intimidation play a key role. Because if heaven is something that is within us, as Christ says, when the people ask you, where's the kingdom? And he says, it comes now for observation, for the kingdom is within you. Then the only way that it can really be taken by force is if you are preventing the people from having access to knowledge that will help liberate them, knowledge that will help save them. When you taking somebody from their homeland and you bring them into another land that is not theirs, in the Bible scriptures talks about this, that when you take this person away from their homeland, having them live in another land that's not theirs, telling them that they cannot speak their original language, that they cannot have access to all of their books that, belongs to them, that they cannot talk about their history, that they cannot read, they cannot, become educated. That's taking heaven by force. So now the people, where is their tools for salvation? When you look at the Bible that the slaves used to read from, it was when they were finally able to have a Bible. And there was only one really that was really allowed to read, the slave preacher. Everyone else would just listen. And you always had the plantation owner normally sitting there listening to what the slave preacher is saying. But their Bible was heavily edited, and books were removed when you read the Bible from the slave Bible, it talked heavily about obeying your masters and being an obedient servant and these sort of things. That is heaven suffering violence. That is the violent taking it by force. Because now the people, they don't really have the tools to true salvation. How can any man call that true salvation? Only a fool will believe that. So we still see that these shackles of neocolonialism, these vestiges, is still living through many modern day pastors, not all of them, but many, and it's also living in the minds of our people. And this is where I talk about we have to remove this. Whether you are an Israelite all the way in Australia, an Israelite in Cambodia, an Israelite in India, Ethiopia, Jamaica, El Salvador, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're at. We all need to liberate our minds. So now, to go back to the article, the next part I really want to start touching on now is the Israelite family. Because the Israelite family, the scriptures talks about how a man would leave his mother and father, as I discussed in the previous video, and find a wife. I showed the verse. Christ talks about it. It talks about it in the book of Genesis. It's talked about throughout the scriptures, a man and a woman. It doesn't start talking about, obviously you have women in the scriptures that are widows. And I'm sure, it wouldn't have been impossible to say that, there may have been single fathers at the time who, might have lost their wife, might have passed away, and they were single fathers raising children. But the ideal is that a man should have a wife. As I talked about previously, when we look through history, and even when we look at articles, having a family household that includes the father, the mother, and the children do much more successful compared to single parent households. And then when you include the fact of having a strong family bonds with other kin and relatives, such as uncles that are involved, grandparents that get involved, cousins, nieces, nephews, just having that collective bond is what helped our people when they were going through tough times during the days of Jim Crow, where they were actually doing, still, despite all the things they were going through, still being very successful. So I talked a lot about it, the family, but right now I want to talk about one of the things that is playing a big role in destabilizing that, and that is going to be the LGBTQ agenda. And I want to show a video that does a really good explanation of what I mean by agenda, because some people may think, "Ooh, wow, you can't say that. That's a taboo." What is really an agenda? I believe that the Jazz Mask Kwasi does a good job explaining it.
All right. So let's address this sound LGBTQ agenda, because on this channel we don't want to just go off a hearsay. So we want to make sure that we clearly define and we don't misrepresent anyone's position. So if you go to the GLAD website, which I did, doing some due diligence, the topic came up, and we go to the entertainment and media tab, the mission statement, so to speak, states that it's there to ensuring, the mission statement states that it is ensuring fair, accurate, inclusive, and diverse portrayals of LGBTQ people in television, film, music, streaming content, comics, and video games. So that's very clear in terms of what the mission is across multiple platforms. Now we have to ask the question, does the Rastafari community have a similar mission statement as it relates to multimedia? These are the questions that I am asking. When we talk about the LGBTQ agenda, I want to make it very clear what we're talking about in the context of this conversation. It's clear that the LGBT community has an agenda to have maximum representation within the media across multiple platforms. I took a trip to GLAAD, which is an advocacy organization for the LGBTQ community, looking at their entertainment and media program. And it clearly states that the entertainment and media program monitors film, television, and music-related entertainment media to ensure inclusive, diverse, and accurate portrayals of the LGBTQ community. When anti-LGBTQ content runs, GLAAD speaks out about why anti-LGBTQ attitudes and content have no place in media and how that impacts real lives. The staff also works with TV and film studio executives and producers and writers to provide script consultations and to advocate for the inclusion of the LGBTQ people at all levels in an effort to spark conversations about LGBTQ issues in the living rooms around water coolers. So that, brethren and sistren, is called an agenda. So we're not coming out of pocket by trying to put things on people that they themselves have not. Brethren and LGBTQ community. When anti-LGBTQ content runs, GLAAD speaks out about why anti-LGBTQ attitudes and content have no place in media and how that impacts real lives. The staff also works with TV and film studio executives and producers and writers to provide script consultations and to advocate for the inclusion of the LGBTQ people at all levels in an effort to spark conversations about LGBTQ issues in the living room.
So as we could see, when they say, they working with all different levels of, and this is not even just entertainment, but even in politics and so forth, to make sure, because as we saw recently with I believe it was the Gay Marriage Act, something that Biden recently passed, not more than 3 months ago, is that they're constantly working to have that their platform or their beliefs, their way of life enforced on some level, or actually enforced on just about every level of life. And it's coming, obviously when we look at it, it targets us specifically more. And obviously they're not going to put that in there. But when we look at black TV shows, or, just anything dealing with black people, like black commercials, that have black people in it, when we're talking about ads and billboards and signs, and just the media, it's like they're specifically pushing more in our community than any other community. So it's important as people who are Israelites, because it's like, the nations may do what the other nations want to do. This is why I say it's important for us to know our origins, where we come from, who we are as a people. You have a decision as being a person of free will, obviously, to make your own path in life. But for us to rebuild our kingdom, it's important that we follow the Most High. And He gives us a guideline of what He wants us to do. When it comes to that topic, it's not something that is missing from the scriptures. It's throughout it. Whether it's the Old Testament or the New Testament, whatever you want to call it, it's throughout the scriptures. So let's take a look at that. But just remember, as he said,
organization for the LGBTQ community, looking at their entertainment and media program. and it clearly states that the entertainment and media program monitors film, television, and music-related entertainment media to ensure inclusive, diverse, and accurate portrayals of the LGBTQ community. When anti-LGBTQ content runs, GLAAD speaks out about why anti-LGBTQ attitudes and content have no place in media. The staff also works with TV and film studio executives and producers and writers to provide script consultations and to advocate for the inclusion of the LGBTQ people at all levels in an effort.
So remember, they're saying they're advocating for inclusion on all levels. That's an agenda because they're pushing it. It's like, that's their way of softening the words, but basically they're pushing to have it included in all levels of life. And like I said, they target the specific target primarily is our people. You have to remember, as the Hebrew Israelites, it talks about in the scriptures of how all the nations are gathered together against us. They have formed a confederacy to keep us from becoming a nation. This is something we see in the scriptures. So if we look at Psalms 83 in the scriptures, it talks about how, keep not thou silence, O Elohim. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Elohim. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, which is us, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. Just listen to that. This is, come on now. It's telling you right there, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consult, they are confederate against thee. So just remember, when we're looking at it and we're like, man, why do they always put this in the black community? They always put in all these lotto tickets, having us getting addicted to gambling, and whether it's casinos, drugs, strip clubs. They put all the lowest of the low, things that purposely bring down our vibrational energy, purposely trying to destroy our communities. Why do they keep targeting us? Well, it's telling you right there. And these are the people that will ask these questions, go to church every Sunday. I guarantee if they ask their pastor why, they're not going to bring up the verses to explain why this is happening. A lot of them they'll find some other kumbaya answer, and we just need to pray about it. And, in the last days, the Most High, he's going to change everything and everyone's going to be living in peace. They don't want to really go to the root and see, okay, why is this specifically happening to our people? And when we take a look at it, it tells you they have become confederate against us, and they have consulted together with one consent. As I said, the beast, Satan, these things, when it comes to coming against our people, they have one mind. They work together. This is why this is happening. This is why when you say, why are they keep putting this on our community? Why are they keep trying to indoctrinate us with this? Why are they always having us basically listening to rap music with a lot of rappers basically talking about a genocide against our own people? And as I showed in the previous video, that guy, the one that used to be over Def Jam, and I believe now he's working for Warner Media, he even talked about, how it's like he knows that the people that he's signing who are talking about this genocide in their music, how it's destructive to the black community, but he doesn't care. Essentially, that's what he's saying. He doesn't care. He's going to keep doing it. He doesn't care about our women dressing up like strippers and prostitutes and escorts. He doesn't care about our rappers glorifying killing other black people and doing drugs. He doesn't care about that. So when it talks about come and let us cut them off from being a nation, this is exactly what it's talking about. Because it says, until the people which are called by my name humble themselves turn from their wicked ways, pray, and basically start obeying the Most High, we are going to continue living in this form of oppression, taken advantage of by all of these other nations. They know when we come together, that's it for them. So that's why they have to keep pushing all this stuff in our community. As long as we stay in like this trance-like hypnotized state, Satan is free to do whatever he wants. And a lot of people may be offended. Oh, no, we don't have the power. It's all in the power. It's all in the hands of the Most High. Yeah, but the Most High even talks about, come out of her, my people. The Most High tells us that the people would be oppressed in a land that's not there 400 years. And afterwards, he would judge that nation. Now, the people aren't reading and studying how the scriptures are telling you that all these things are connected. They only got there as a result of the sins that we made. So we did play a big part in the way things are right now. So when you look at this, when you're frustrated and you look at the landscape and see how things are and you get frustrated, well, a lot of it has to do with the decisions that our people made. But now it's a time for us to come out, wake up. So now looking at what the scriptures talks about, let's see. So here's one example. When we look at Deuteronomy 22, chapter 22, verse 5, it says, "The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are an abomination to Yah our Elohim." When did this change? When did this become obsolete? So, because as we know, the Most High never changes. So we see right here in Malachi 3:6, "For I am Yah, I change not. Therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed." So it tells you he changes not. So how can you read a verse and that says that basically for men to be wearing women's clothing and women to be dressing up like men, all these drag queen things and so forth, these things are abomination to the Most High. But now when Christ comes, all of a sudden it's no longer an abomination unto the Most High. What? When Malachi tells you that, even if we look into the New Testament for the people that are basically New Testament only, some people, it says, "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning." So it's telling you that the Most High, once he sets something into place, it's set. He tells you, okay, this is an abomination. For you to later come and say, no, it's not, and then do it, it's basically like you acted intentionally, knowing that what the Most High is saying is that it's not acceptable. So if even to wear a woman's garment is an abomination, if women try to become like men, just in appearance wise, without even getting into the sexual change, into the sex change and surgery, if even that is an abomination, then what is actually mutilating the flesh to become something that you were not born? Imagine what that is unto the Most High. Really, use common sense and logic. So let's see. Keep looking. Let's actually look at another verse. It says in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13, "If a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them." So, for the people that are saying that homosexuality is allowed in the scriptures, again, everything I'm talking about is in the Bible. So there's no reason to be outraged about it, because And, for the people that do get outraged, it goes back to the scriptures in Psalms 83, where it talks about how the people that basically the enemies of the Most High. Because if you are outraged at this being the word of the Most High, then basically you're an enemy of the Most High. Because your goal is not to follow the Most High, your goal is to be against him. Something that he says is an abomination. Something that he says is, doing something like this will cause you to be put to death. But yet you are so vehemently against what the Most High is saying. You're like, nope, I don't care. And a lot of these people that are influential are pushing it into our community. And this is why it says in Isaiah chapter 3, verse 12, as for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err and destroy the way of thy paths. Because they have a lot of people that are in our communities, influential, pushing this on us. And what do I mean by that? So here we see Charles Barkley, a man who, we often see on, I believe is the TNT NBA show. He's one of the commentators, as we see right here, wearing makeup and a dress. I mean, not only that, even LeBron James, right here, in a dress and a wig. Then we have people like Lakeith Stanfield, who played in a couple shows and movies, like Sorry to Bother You, Atlanta, The Harder They Fall, wearing female stockings and a dress. This is like, come on, people. But some people, when they see this, and then you got a bunch of other stuff too, you can keep going on and on with it. People even like Wesley Snipes when he dressed up as a drag queen. It's very prevalent. But again, some people that may watch that, even looking at people like Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry dressing up like a woman. And, he does that all the time. But, a lot of people, even, black people, watching his shows. And then we see after he does all of that, dressing up as a woman on stage, wearing dress and makeup and so forth, we see him going preaching, donating money to mega churches, and these pastors accepting the money. And it's like, it's one thing if they accept the money, but then, they have him actually on stage talking, laying hands on people. And it's just like, this is just one big comedy show. It's just like, wow. And this was at T.D. Jakes' church. It's just like, wow. Hollywood stars and Bill Clinton. And we talked about in a previous video how the Ashkenazi Jewish people created Hollywood. So we see whose side they're on. Because when you read this, it's like it tells you that a man should not put on a woman's garment. It's an abomination. And then when we look at Leviticus, it's like it tells you that a man lying with another man will cause him to be put to death. And it's like, it's not only just that, it's the same thing with a female. A female should not lie with another female. according to the scriptures. And again, for the people that only want the New Testament, I'll give you the New Testament. Romans chapter 1, 26 through 27. For this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. Well, let's actually look at the context of it. Let's go back. So when we go back to the 21st verse 21. So it says, because that when they knew the Most High, they glorified him not as the Most High, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. So this is the context of it. It talks about how basically, when you're looking at the people that are like high up in high positions, they know that we are the true Israelites. They know what they're doing. All of the transatlantic slave trade was intentional. Them purposely hiding our language and our history from us, telling us, okay, this is where you people came from, and basically whitewashing all black history. They knew what they were doing. When it comes to purposely editing the scriptures, the word of the Most High, they knew what they were doing. And this is why the Most High abandoned them. And this is why they have no connection with the Most High, because their goal is only wickedness. And this is why it talks about how basically, because that when they knew the Most High, they glorified him not as the Most High, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. So this is the context of it. It's telling you how all these people in high positions, you know, they know who the Most High is, but their goal is not to worship the Most High. No, their goal is to basically take his people and send them to hell by keeping them from being able to have access to salvation, as it talks about heaven, it suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. This is what they're doing. This is why they push these ideologies on our people. Now, so to go back to this 26th verse, it says, for this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burn in their lust one toward another, men with men working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. So it's clearly telling you that for the people that say, well, maybe, it's all right for women to lie with women, it says that in the 26th verse, how the women gave up their natural use into that which is against nature. What is against nature? How can a woman and a woman produce offspring? Oh, a woman, human being, and another woman, human being. Just like a man and a man can produce offspring and procreate, a woman and a woman cannot produce offspring and procreate. So that's what it means that they changed the natural use. It's impossible. Just that, and the same thing now going, and they even go. You can even take it even further to the point that now they even changing their bodies to become a man, taking hormones. If you have to inject something into your body, it's not natural. If you have to get a procedure done to change your body, that's not natural. A man changing his body into a woman does not allow him to all of a sudden have female eggs that can accept sperm so that he can give birth to a child. No, all of that stuff has to be done through, in order to seemingly have a man give birth to a child. It's all abomination, because then you start using science to cut into the flesh and insert things into the flesh, and it's like, now it's like, this is what I'm saying. You're going against that which the Most High set up. He set up an order, and this is why they're the enemies of the Most High, because their goal is to go against the natural order that the Most High has set up. And it says the Most High changes not. So if he set up from the beginning that you need a man and a woman to procreate, to produce life, what makes you think he's all of a sudden he's going to change that? It doesn't make any sense. And this is why it says, and then for the people that do speak out against it, using just common sense and even logic, they are attacked. They're vilified. And this is what it even says in the scripture. It says, woe unto them, in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20 through 21, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and the prudent in their own sight. So these people that say, okay, what this is, what for a person speaking out against this topic, we need to basically shut them down. For even thinking that thought, you should be repenting. And for the people that are actually taking steps to actually destroy that person, to ruin their reputation and their image, that's why it says woe unto them, because, like I said, there's a judgment coming. There's a judgment coming upon these people for what they're doing. And again, this all ties in with the previous video, how it's important that we restore the black family. So I wanted to illustrate that and talk about and discuss that. So obviously you can look into basically the people that are pushing these agendas. A lot of it, because the internet in some form of fashion has been censored, a lot of these articles get removed and so forth. So that's why I look to the scriptures, because for me that's the source. It's straight up telling you. And for the people that want to look more deeper into it, do some digging and you'll see how it's all connected. Who the people are that are pushing these things. There is no, doing it from the point of view of righteousness. No, everything they're doing, it has a purpose. So, I like to talk now about His Imperial Majesty, because, and it's said during the coronation, as you can see right here, there's the coronation of His Imperial Majesty, HAILE SELASSIE I. And HAILE SELASSIE I, as I also talked about in another previous video, means might of the Trinity. Why? Because you have the Spirit of the Father dwelling in His Imperial Majesty. You have the Word of God within His Imperial Majesty, and the Holy Ghost within His Imperial Majesty. This is the Trinity, according to the book of John. As we see right here in 1 John 5:7, for there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. So this is the true Trinity, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost. And we see these three all in one, embodied in His Imperial Majesty. So, and for the people, and again, I'm going to be doing there's a movie coming out where I'm going to go really deeper into the meaning of the prophecies and how they apply to His Imperial Majesty. Because for a lot of people, when you say Father, how can He be Father? How? They're not understanding. All of this is coming from the scriptures. When we look at Isaiah 9:6, it says right here, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Elohim, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So, again, it's telling you that child is born and he shall be called the Everlasting Father. When you think of the title Father, obviously the Father is, as we talked about in Restoring the Israelite Household, the head of the household. You have the Father. Now, when you look at the Father, what is his responsibilities? He takes care of the family. Now, when you look at the scripture, it tells you in the next verse, of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of Yah of hosts will perform this. So now when we look at the scriptures, and every time I talk about the Tower Father, I have to bring this up for the people that are new listeners, so that they don't think this is blasphemy. They don't think, wait, hold on, wait, what's going on? This is out of pocket. No, it's not out of pocket. It's all connected to the scriptures, because it's literally telling you of the increase of his government, him sitting upon the throne of David. Yeshua the Christ never physically sat on the throne of David while he was on earth. He had a prophecy. He had his roles in the scriptures he accomplished. But as far as reigning over Israel in his day while he was walking the earth, he was never coronated. He was not running the country of Israel. When we look at his imperial majesty, he was the head of government as the emperor Negus Negas, sitting upon the throne of David from the lineage of David, going to Solomon and then to Menelik, sitting on the throne of David, as it talks about right here, and as head of the constitutional monarchy, is the highest representative, the highest form, possessing the highest form of leadership. So to be taking care of a nation, of all of its people, all of that responsibility was on him. So when we look at the head of government, just like we look at the head of household and we say, oh, that's the father right there. Those are his children. And then you have the father. His responsibility as head of the household is taking care of the family. His imperial majesty is the father, taking care of his people, that entire nation. As it says, the government shall be upon his shoulders. Under a constitutional monarchy, his imperial majesty, the government rested upon his shoulders. He had the highest, as I said, the highest authority in all the land. And there is no other King of Kings. He is crowned King of Kings.
Then you have Haile Selassie as the representation of the father, because guess what he have to do? Haile Selassie is the man who have to set the government, make sure that the thing runs, make sure all of the children are educated, all of the responsibility, that's the father. The son is Yeshua, the prophet, the eye of the prophecy. Yeshua, what did he do? He informed the people, woke up their spirit, showing them a proof of concept, meaning feeding the multitude. So all of these different manifestations, again, manifest that Trinity. Haile Selassie happens to be the might because he also preceptical, meaning he secured the independence of the Ethiopian church. He was able to navigate ecclesiastical manners, probably the foremost biblical scholar to ever walk the face of the earth, having read, having been versed in several languages and trained from a child in the ancient scrolls, and translated the Bible into Amharic. That was a big part of his life. Even from 1918, His Majesty said he started that journey of translating the Bible, and it was interrupted. He was getting ready to translate it from Ge'ez to Amharic, and it was interrupted by the Italians' invasion. And then he still was able to finish the work while he was in England and get the Amharic versions of the Bible shipped in. So this is a major part of Haile Selassie's vision for his people in terms of enlightening them about the Christ consciousness and the Christ tradition. But again, responsibility of the Father. So we celebrate on this day, Ethiopian Christmas, the birth of the Son, Yeshua, because he provides the archetype in which the manifestation of the Father walks on the planet when he manifests to fulfill this work. So all of them feed. Yeshua walks in the order of Melchizedek, who manifests before he manifests in the physical form. And it's the ideal father-son relationship because the Father glorifies the Son glorifies the Father. It's a balance.
So, again, to go back to the video, because like I said, I always like to explain it so that people don't start, getting astonished and, their mouth wide open, and it's like, no, we have to look at it in its fullness. So now we see His Imperial Majesty sitting upon the throne with his wife, with his children, as a father. We see this. Again, here's another picture. And during the coronation, it's actually said that Empress Menen was actually pregnant. So in a way, we see the whole family dynamic during the coronation. And this is in 1930, during the height of Jim Crow. Black people being lynched in America. All these things going on. Still, Africa still under colonialism. And we see this happen. Come on now. Open your eyes and see. You have an unconquered land, the oldest Christian empire in the world. Only African nation not colonized. Ethiopia with the King of Kings. And by reigning over Ethiopia and sitting on David's throne, the King of Israel. So he provides us the model blueprint of the Israelite family. He showcases it to you. The Most High putting the spirit of the Father in his elect so that we have a representative to see someone sitting upon the throne, a representative, the highest representative, showcasing us how the family should be. Father, then you have the mother, and you have the children. Come on, people, it's all there. And even when the coronation proceeds, it's very remarkable because something is done that was never done according to precedent, but something new was done. When we look at the coronation, and this is, I believe this is it's a quote from the autobiography of His Imperial Majesty Emperor HAILE Selassie I. All right, so the coronation service of the Queen. So subsequently, the coronation service of the Empress commenced. The procedure for the enthronement of the Empress is today different from what it used to be previously. According to our historical practice, the Empress was not anointed with oil of kingship on the grounds that she did not share in rulership with the Emperor. The crown, being merely symbolic, was very small. It was in the palace that the Emperor placed the crown on her head and not in the church. This occurred on the third day, for it was not permitted for her to be crowned on the same day as the emperor. But now it was determined after consultation, and was accordingly carried out, that except for the regal anointing, the archbishop should place a crown on her, put the diamond ring on her finger, and that this should be on the same day jointly with the coronation of the emperor. After the ceremony for the emperor, the empress entered with her attendants to take her throne. So now, when we look at this, His Imperial Majesty and the Empress, his wife, Empress Mother, Empress Menen, are crowned the same day. Why is this important? As I talked about in Restoring the Israelite Family, it talks about how in Colossians 3:19, husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them. In Ephesians 5:33, nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself. And the wife see that she reverence her husband. We see this on coronation day. We see this, in the pictures of the ceremony. I mean, that's why I say when we talk about His Imperial Majesty being the highest standard for us of the temple, because you had the Trinity within him, setting the standard for us today. He does it. Something that had not ever been done before, he did it. He did a new thing. This is the scriptures, when they talk about doing something new, it's like you have traditions and then you have a new thing being done. His Imperial Majesty coronated this, the Empress Menen coronated the same day as His Imperial Majesty. It's just amazing. This is a new thing, but when I'm saying the new thing, what I'm saying is that it's important because it's a model for us. people in the diaspora, people, Israelites in the Holy Land. It's a model for all of us, setting that dynamic of the husband and wife and children. And we see that exemplified on the highest level during the coronation. On the highest level, we see that exemplified. We see this, the standard of the Israelite family exemplified on the highest level through His Imperial Majesty, setting the standard. It's amazing. So I also want to highlight, let's see, the next thing is that, and this is the thing, it's like when it comes to Yeshua, we're not able to see that fully. Yeshua set up an exemplary standard as well. We have the Gospels, but the thing is, we don't have the the voice recordings. We don't have him on video. Like, we have videos of His Imperial Majesty, documentaries. This is the generation that seeketh thy face, O Jacob Selah. And where do I get this from? So in Psalms 24:6, it says, "This is a generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob Selah." And I say Jacob because, there was no J in Hebrew, so it would be, a Y normally. Now, a lot of people will say sometimes just Jacob because that's the English transliteration of it. But as you can see here, if we go down and we actually look at the Strongs of it, it's Jacob. So when I say, oh, Jacob Selah, then, I'm just using the actual, a language much older than English. So when we look at the whole context of it, take a look at Psalms 24. It's very interesting because it's referring to, obviously, the Most High, but it's also referring to His elect. And you have to sometimes read in between the lines to figure that part out, because many people read it exoterically on the surface and not esoteric, which is underneath what's hidden between the lines, because as we know, for some people, the gospel is hid. So sometimes you have to do some digging and do some due diligence and research to uncover the true meaning, the truth. So when we see this, you can read from 7 to 10 to get clear context of what's going on when it says, "Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." Who is this King of glory? Yah, strong and mighty, Yah, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, lift them up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? Yah of hosts, He is the King of glory. Selah. Now, it's very interesting. And, since the letters are in blue, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to see for the eyes. But when we look at the name Jacob, we know that Jacob's name was changed to Israel at the wrestling angel, or so to say in English, the transliteration is Israel. That name is probably also was another name attached to it. But the point is that the spiritual nature, his higher self, his higher consciousness of Jacob is Israel. But the physical nature, the physical side that we see, the flesh and blood, is Jacob. So why would it say then, this is a generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob Selah? Yet when we're reading this, as I said before, on the esoteric level, it looks like we're just reading about the exploits and the great accomplishments that the Most High does, all the great wonders He does. But then we go to, O Jacob Selah. This is a generation that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob Selah. So it's like it kind of throws you for a curveball. But a lot of people just read that as a standalone and then continue reading, and they forget the whole point of why Jacob is even mentioned here. Why? Because obviously Jacob is a man. He is the physical flesh and blood of the spiritual people of the Most High. So when it's saying, this is a generation that seek him, that seek that face, O Jacob Selah, This is referring to His Imperial Majesty. Why? Because we see the spiritual through the Most High, and then we see the physical through the God in the flesh of His Imperial Majesty, or the Elohim in the flesh. So when you see when you get clearer context to understanding the meaning of this chapter right here of Psalms, it very clearly lays out that you have the Most High and you have His elect, and that when it's referring to the Yah mighty in battle, well, when have we seen the Most High fighting in battle? If you have any answers to that, I urge you put it down in the comments. But I'll tell you, it's going to be a real stretch to try to find that. Because what I'm saying is, when we look at the context, mighty in battle, it's like, wait, is there a war going on? Well, we see that clearly with His Imperial Majesty. When we see, as it even says in this newspaper clipping, and again, I'm going to get more into this in the movie, because if you've read Revelations 19 before, it talks about the one who sits on top of the white horse. So we can see the patterns in heaven represented on earth. Now, here it says, Haile Selassie I, the first, stands alone, endeavoring to protect his ancient nation against an encroaching world. Ethiopia's emperor faces a storm. This was made in, this article is from 1935, the beginning of the second Ethiopian Italo War. So we see pictures of His Imperial Majesty on the battlefield. Here's him holding a machine gun, an anti-aircraft machine gun. You see him sitting down, planning, likely, how they were going to arrange the troops and so forth, sitting down with counselors and speaking about, how the battle is going to go. So, we see His Imperial Majesty on the battlefield. Pictures of him discussing, likely with, generals, the military operations and so forth. Again, several pictures right here. You see bombs on the ground. You see, the soldiers around him and so forth. We see here in Zechariah 14, verse 3, then shall Yah go forth and fight against those nations as when He fought in the day of battle. Again, another reference to it, as when He fought in the day of battle. So we see that the Elohim we see that the Most High puts His Spirit, the Spirit of the Father, into His elect when the world is on the verge of complete and utter destruction. When those times happen, post-flood, post Noah's Ark, because we know how, following those events, it's talked about how, the Most High is not going to destroy the earth with water again. So, following that, we see now the representative of the Most High, the highest representative on earth, in battle. So this is where it talks about who is this King of glory. Yah, strong and mighty. Yah, mighty in battle. And then when you look at that, and then the previous verse, the verse prior to the 7th verse, verse 6, this is the generation of them that seek Him, that seek Thy face, O Jacob Selah. It's referring to the physical representation of the Elohim on earth, the highest representative of all mankind, the Father, the Spirit of the Father dwelling in His Imperial Majesty. So, again, I want to just illustrate that, by sharing, cases of, you can see the King of Kings on the battlefield. And again, as I said, I put out the verses for people to read. Revelations 19, Isaiah 9:6. Study it, and you'll see. It's like, it's incontrovertible. It's, you can't argue against it. It's there. Just look at it. Just do your research. Open your third eye, and you'll see. Now, when it comes to why am I discussing this in this video? Again, it has to do with restoring balance to the Israelite family, because when it comes um to us, it's like we need to always have a model, someone to emulate. Is very important for us, and especially when you can see that person on video, when you can see that, when you can read that person's, like I said earlier, the autobiography, you have all the information about him. Now, let's see, actually, so again, I wanted to just highlight that, because when it comes to Yeshua, as I said before, we don't get to actually hear directly from him, in terms of, actual being able to see a recording of him. You know, he doesn't have a direct gospel that was written from him. We get, accounts of witnesses. Obviously, these witnesses are anointed. Were anointed by the Most High to write and inscribe about the life and the ministry of Yeshua. But I'm just saying, we don't have like this the same amount of material that we are able to get with His Imperial Majesty, pictures of his family and, you know, the coronation and so forth like that. So, and this is actually prophesied in the scripture, we know, because as it says in Isaiah chapter 53, verse 8, and this is regarding Yeshua the Christ, he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people was he stricken. So now, you know, even though we have, the Gospels, as far as actually having evidence, that supports his existence outside the scriptures, there's very few, there's very few evidence. And, this is why you have people that try to say that that Yeshua never existed, people that, believe that don't believe he was the Messiah and so forth. Again, as I said, through our faith, the people that have faith, yes, we know he existed. We know he lived. We know his accomplishments, how he fulfills prophecy. But I'm just saying, unlike his Imperial Majesty, that is like, everything is like right there, that we know for a fact. I mean, it's incontrovertible. There are people that are actually alive that actually met and spoke with His Imperial Majesty. We have the videos, we have all of that. With Yeshua, we don't have that. So this is why I said it was important. This is why I even talks about, that's why I just read in Psalms 24, this is a generation that seeketh thy face, O Jacob Selah. With Yeshua, we get, paintings of him and so forth. And some of these paintings could be accurate reflections of how we actually look. But as far as actually, the level of evidence that, and just being able to see his face, video of him with his family and so forth, we don't have that. And this is why we sought that face, the physical divinity of God with us, God in the flesh. And we have the highest representative through the King of Kings, His Imperial Majesty, HAILE SELASSIE I, who sets an example for the Israelite family to help restore us. And, again, all these things are connected. Really, all the videos are going to start connecting. But I want to highlight that. And as I said, in order for us to really, as a people, to fully restore, not only the Israelite family, but the Israelite community and the nation, the kingdom itself, it's important that, I suggest, if you haven't watched my video where I talk about the 4 pillars, I urge you to watch it, because it's really all going to come together of how land ownership is key. Land ownership, obviously, is very key to economic development. So we have that, and then you have the people. Obviously, the people, the greatest resource of any nation is its people, as His Imperial Majesty said. So you have the diaspora, and then you also have the people living in the Holy Land itself, in Ethiopia, Israelites living there. And then you have the Church of HAILE Selassie I, You had the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation, which made the original Ethiopian World Federation defunct, as the royal family supports the Imperial Ethiopian World Federation. And you had the Ethiopian Crown Council, which provides us a way of having political sovereignty. So you have the economic aspect, you have the political aspect, you have, us being able to, as far as being recognized on a global on a global stage, on a global scale. You have that through the Ethiopian Crown Council, which is the constitutional monarchy in Terigno. So it is very much a sovereign government in and of itself. It just needs to be connected with the people and obviously the land. And as I said, this is something that I go a little bit deeper into in one of my videos, which is, let's see, under Restoring the Hebrew Israelite Kingdom in Ethiopia, Rastafari movement. In this video, I go, a little bit deeper into it. And again, I'm going to start highlighting it because, everything is about repetition. We keep chanting this, we keep saying this, emphasizing this in every video as people continue to watch it and continue to grow and increase in faith and in works. And as we start coming together, we can manifest this. This is what it's talking about, referring to, speak in in books like the book of Zechariah, in chapters 12 and chapter 14 and so forth. So another thing that I also want to highlight before I end this video is, let's actually take a look at it. There's a video that I want to highlight, and let's see, because again, it's important that we have our community, our land, build our nation, because it's like in this land, we are being constantly taken advantage of. We're being constantly hit from every angle. And when I say this land, I actually mean all the lands that we scattered to. We just need to get to our own land. It don't matter if you're an Aboriginal in Australia, a Pacific Islander, Melanesian, or an Israelite living in the Philippines, or Israelite living in Brazil, just wherever part of the world you're at. The point is, we need to be returning back to the Holy Land. And these places that we're at, we're just being picked apart. That's all it is. We're just being picked apart. We're defenseless. They have all the weapons. They have all the tools at their disposal. We don't really have nothing except, well, actually, I will take that back. We have the Most High. And the Most High trumps any sort of possible weapon that Babylon could try to put up against us. So it's important that we start working together and returning back to the Holy Land. And I just want to emphasize, obviously in my previous video, I talked about the Ashkenazis, the people who say they're Jewish. But when we really look at it, look at, who controls all the resources, as I talked about, it's the Caucasian people. A history of Jewish control of South African diamond industry. It talks about how, De Beers basically accounts for 94% of South Africa's diamond output. And this is only just talking about one company. But when we look at it, like it even says right here, De Beers' entire production of diamonds in 1800 was sold by 10 firms, all being Jewish. De Beers also created the concept of blood diamonds, fearful that diamonds coming out of the war-torn areas of West Africa will flood the market and undermine their global market control. So then it talks about, how thanks to powerful Jewish group in the 1800s, South Africa has been the world's leader in diamond production. A lot of these companies got their start from Ashkenaz, as I talked about in Genesis 10, who are the children of Japheth. When we look at even things like the Dutch trade company, I believe, they were also being backed by Ashkenaz. Okay. Yep, Dutch East India Company, which took part in the slave trade as well. So it's important now that we're reading the prophecies that we become a kingdom, that we start coming together again. this is the Most High's will for us, as I talked about in the previous video in the book of Joel, how it talks about, gathering the people, blow the trumpet. It's important that we start coming together. Now, when we look at our people as we are scattered, and how, many times we can be very defenseless against Babylon with their weapons and their tools that they have at their disposal, such as when we look at police brutality, police brutality against Ethiopian Israelites and the state of Israel, how you have, a lot of racism going on out there. You have police brutality against the Israelites out here in America. We have the same thing, brutality against Israelites in Australia. Just all over globally, we are defenseless. When we look at most of the missing people around the world, it's mainly melanated black people. We account for the majority. So when I was looking at the percentage of missing black persons or missing Israelites in America, it says though we make up only 13.4% of the population, nearly 40% of missing persons are people of color. So you can see that there's a disproportionately high rate of Israelites who go missing, and for the justice system, the majority of it, they could care less. But it was interesting when I was looking up something, and this has to do with Ashkenaz. Just check this out.
These were arrests on a massive scale. Amongst those taken into custody by the FBI were city mayors, politicians and religious leaders. The authorities needed buses to cope with the sheer scale of the operation.
New Jersey's corruption problem is one of the worst, if not the worst, in the nation. Corruption is not only pervasive, it has become ingrained in New Jersey's political culture.
It's thought that religious charities controlled by prominent rabbis were used to launder cash. The arrests were part of a 10-year operation that uncovered money laundering on an international scale, as well as corruption and the sale of human organs in the US, Switzerland and Israel.
The list of people we arrested sounds like it should be the roster.
So you see the sale of human organs. Now this is where they're going to say something that's really kind of shouldn't be very surprising, but it's very telling, and it connects directly with what I was just talking about.
Meeting of community leaders. But sadly, they weren't meeting in a boardroom this morning. They were in the FBI booking room.
Prosecutors say one rabbi was dealing in human kidneys for transplant for a decade, buying them from vulnerable people at a huge profit.
Buying them from vulnerable people. And, I think right there I think they're kind of like dimming the actual severity of it, because I doubt they were buying these. And if they were buying these organs, it wasn't a person voluntarily, I highly doubt voluntarily, giving up their organs. There are people that are willingly, will sell something of theirs, but, again, this was a massive operation. So it's not, a couple people here and there. No, it was a lot of organs being taken, a lot of, money being laundered. So when we see, just common sense logic, you can obviously see there's definitely a correlation between missing persons, people who are melanated Israelites going missing, and these organ trades. And these are just the ones that obviously the system outed them. The people that are on the good side of the system, that when I say the good side, they haven't made enemies with Babylon, and that are still very much involved and they're working together. None of them are going to be outed, because as we saw with places like, Epstein's Island, when they came off a list of the people that were going there, it was a bunch of people that, have not been under investigation, who have not been basically sent to prison, or been, had any sort of fallout from it, or no consequences, nothing has happened. So we see that when it comes to certain people get outed. But again, seeing this, and we see a lot of them, like they were saying, were rabbis, people within the so-called Jewish community, these Ashkenaz, Japheth people who pretend to be the true Israelites, dealing in an organ trade that affects, as it said before, as the lady said, vulnerable people. So who are vulnerable people? I mean, come on now, it's clearly, we know what they're doing. And this is why I said it's so important that we as a people form a kingdom, because us being divided, us just living our lives like, on the plantation, like everything is fine, kumbaya, we're getting picked off one by one. It's like 40 people in the field, we go to sleep, wake up, there's 30 people there. Go to sleep, wake up, there's 20 people there. Go to sleep, wake up, there's 10 people there. Everyone keeps going. But instead, I guess we could say more like, you go to sleep, wake up, there's 30 people there when there was 40 people the previous day. But these people, it's like they'll bring 8 more people into the plantation. So now it's 38. So we forget about the 10 that went missing. Because it's like, okay, well, now we have more. We'll keep resupplying the stock. It's like, enough is enough. This is no longer necessary for us to continue subjecting us, for us to subject ourselves to this, to these atrocities, to this genocide. Because there is a genocide going on in our people. It's been going on since our people were taken against their will to this land. So this is why I said it's very important that we as a people come together and form a kingdom. And I just want to end it on, just another video that was on the Breakfast Club, where they interviewed a man by the name of Jonathan Greenblatt, who he's basically one of the people that are like in charge of the ADL League, which is a Jewish controlled organization.
So, for example, the Jews run Hollywood. Look, it is certainly true that there are a number of prominent Jewish people in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry. But the idea that the Jews run Hollywood is nuts. There's no cabal of Jews who are manipulating things. But the idea that Jews in power shows up over history of slave ships. Jews don't have the history of 300 years of enslavement, 100 years of Jim Crow. We don't have that history in this country. Being a black man in America has a kind of cost that being Jewish doesn't have.
Can we talk about Hollywood again? Because it is true that Jewish people founded Hollywood, but there's a reason for that.
They did.
Right?
Some Jewish individuals, like called the Jewish entrepreneurs, who couldn't get. Look, at the turn of the century, Jews couldn't get hired at law firms. Businesses wouldn't hire Jews. Jews couldn't buy homes in many places. The reason why we have so many of these medical institutions like Mount Sinai or whatnot is Jewish people founded them because Jewish people couldn't get treated. Medical institutions or hospitals wouldn't treat Jews. Mm-hmm. So Jewish people had to create their own entities, their own subculture. Again, there's a lot of commonalities with the black experience in this country in this regard. And so when they couldn't get jobs, entrepreneurial Jews went to the West Coast to build out this new industry that now we call Hollywood, the entertainment industry, the motion picture industry. And so as an industry, some Jewish people helped to create it. They had some success with it. But at the risk of stating the obvious, there are 10 zillion people in that industry who are not Jewish. Mm-hmm. I mean, the vast majority are not Jewish. But they have had some great success there.
So you see, that's interesting how he said that. We see how, as I talked about in my previous video, and then also, if you understand about black towns, historic black towns, whenever it comes to our people, and this is how we know we're the true Israelites, whenever we build it, like he talked about the commonality between the Ashkenaz Jewish experience and the black Hebrew Israelite experience. When we look at when black people try to establish their own businesses, when black people try to establish a town, when black people are trying to build in their own industries, it's constantly being hit from all angles, mainly by Gentiles, to try and destabilize us, to keep us from having a town, as we saw with Tulsa. And then when we try to rebuild it, they put in new tactics of integration to keep us from being able to support black-owned business. Now we're investing in white enterprises. So, but when the Ashkenaz do it, as they are part of Japheth, they are successful. They go and they build Hollywood. They building up the entertainment industry. So notice in the beginning of the interview, he goes from saying the fact that there's a Jewish cabal that controls Hollywood is a myth to admitting that Jews created Hollywood. He tells you that Jews created these different industries, how they had to create hospitals and create law firms and stuff like that. And now we see that the country is dominated by it. When we look at the entertainment industry, or who controls a lot of these television networks, they're mainly Ashkenaz. So they had success. There was no, okay, wow, we see that they're creating these establishments, we have to stop them. No, because, as I said, the beast operates with a one-track mind. They work together. So when they see, oh, Ashkenaz is working on something, let them be. How do I know this? Because we see this even in modern day. Again, this is just one aspect of it. U.S. lawmakers seek to criminally outlaw support for boycott campaign against Israel. And this being the state of Israel, not the true kingdom of Israel located in Ethiopia, but the state of Israel. So we see when it talks about the criminalization of political speech and activism against Israel, where the Ashkenaz Japheth, where their main headquarters is at, the state of Israel, which they created, has become one of the gravest threats to free speech in the West. In France, activists have been arrested and prosecuted for wearing t-shirts advocating a boycott of Israel. The UK has enacted a series of measures designed to outlaw such activism. In the US, governors compete with one another over who can implement the most extreme regulations to bar businesses from participating in any boycotts aimed even at Israeli settlements, which the world still regards as illegal. As we saw with, there's actually, the UN was actually working on doing an investigation on the settlements, the Israeli settlements on Palestinian land. And the U.S. actually voted against it. And you also had other countries voting against it. So it says, on U.S. campuses, punishment of pro-Palestinian students for expressing criticisms of Israel is so commonplace that the Center for Constitutional Rights referred to as the Palestine exemption to free speech. And then you have a group of 43 senators, 29 Republicans, and 14 Democrats that want to implement a law that will make it a felony for Americans to support the international boycott against Israel. Here's the AIPAC lobbying agenda. See, we talked about the LGBTQ agenda. Now we're talking about the Ashkenaz agenda. See, all these things are agendas, and they're all backed by the United States government. And it says the Israel Anti-Boycott Act further targets UN anti-Israel activity by prohibiting United States persons from cooperating with efforts by international organizations, including the UN, to boycott Israel. So the man that's the CEO of the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, which is, run by Ashkenaz, talks about how basically the belief that Ashkenaz has power, or, controls several organizations, how they control Hollywood and so forth, and have influence in politics on the global stage, is a myth. What his statement is completely false, because as we can see, they do have a lot of impact. In fact, on the most powerful government in the world, the United States, they basically control it. So we see Japheth, Ashkenaz all working together in peace and harmony, as we see the state of Israel, Ashkenaz flag, and the United States Gentile flag in the background, cooperating, they're allies. So, and then we see how Ashkenaz, is behind when it comes to the organ trafficking and human trafficking. They playing a role in it. So it's like these people, they're all connected. But notice again, when he talked about how it was important that, Ashkenaz set up these institutions, our people need to realize how important it is for them to set up institutions of their own and stop relying on the West. And the thing is, they cannot build it in the West, because if you build it in the West, it don't matter if it's built in any of these countries. We have to be building these institutions in the Holy Land, because that's our kingdom. We need to be building our own institutions, independent from the West, independent from support of the governments of the West. We shouldn't even really be relying on them like that. We need to be focused on ourselves so that no other nation could say, oh, we did it for them. We need to do it for ourselves, rebuild our kingdom. And as it says, it talked about in the scriptures, as I showed it, is that their goal is to form a confederacy to prevent us from becoming a nation. They don't want us to become a kingdom. But like I said, the four pillars are going to come together, whether they like it or not. So again, I always leave up my contact information. So right now, the goal is to move to Ethiopia, the Holy Land, and build a community. For people that are like-minded with that, like I said, I always leave up my information so that we can talk and work together and actually start building and start actually doing things, making things happen. That's what it's about, fulfilling the prophecy.